Most people would literally rather electrocute themselves than sit alone in a room with their own thoughts for 15 minutes. That sounds like a joke, but it's the literal truth of a disturbing scientific study. In 2014, researchers at the University of Virginia put people in an empty room with no phones, no books, and no distractions. They were given one thing, a button that would deliver a painful electric shock to their ankle. Before the test, everyone said they'd pay money to avoid being shocked, but after just a few minutes of silence, 67% of the men and 25% of the women chose to shock themselves rather than just sit there. One guy even shocked himself 100 tiny times. Think about that. We are so terrified of the noise inside our own heads that physical pain feels like a relief. If you've ever stayed up until 3 a.m. scrolling through your phone just to drown out your brain, you aren't broken. You're just human. By the end of this video, you're going to understand something about your mind that your teachers never mentioned and no meditation app has ever fully explained. You'll know exactly why your brain is so loud and, more importantly, how to finally find some peace. And no, I'm not going to tell you to just think positive. In fact, trying to think positive is probably making your problem worse. But before we fix the noise, we have to understand where it comes from. Most people spend their whole lives trying to quiet their minds without ever asking why they're loud in the first place. It's like trying to fix a car engine by yelling at it to be quiet. To solve the problem, we need to look back about 200,000 years. Imagine I'm drawing a stickman ancestor on a savanna. Back then, having a quiet, peaceful mind was a great way to get eaten by a lion. The humans who survived were the ones whose brains never stopped scanning for threats. Is that a rustle in the grass? Is that shadow a predator? Did that guy in the tribe look at me weirdly? If he did, he might kick me out, and back then, exile meant death. The anxious brain survived and passed those genes down to you. So here you are today, sitting in a safe room with a fridge full of food, but your 200,000-year-old brain is still running ancient software. It treats an unread email like a saber-toothed tiger and a social media comment like a threat to your tribal survival. Your brain isn't broken, it's just running Windows 95 on a high-speed fiber connection. It's outdated, but here's where it gets interesting. Most people stop there and say, oh, it's just evolution. But there's a second layer to this noise that almost nobody talks about, and it's the reason why your mind stays loud even when you try to relax. To understand this, we have to look at a group of monks who confused scientists for decades. In the early 2000s, neuroscientists studied Tibetan monks who had spent tens of thousands of hours meditating. They found that even when these monks weren't doing anything, just resting, their brains were producing gamma waves at levels never seen in normal people. Their baseline state was calmer than most people's deepest state of focus, but they weren't born that way. They had rewired their brains. Not through force, but through understanding one specific secret. Your thoughts are not the noise. Your resistance to your thoughts is the noise. Think of it this way. A thought pops up. I'm worried about work tomorrow. That's just a data point. It's neutral, but then you judge it. I shouldn't be worried. Why am I so anxious? I need to stop thinking about this so I can sleep. Now, you don't just have one thought. You have a thought about a thought, a feeling about that thought, and a judgment about that feeling. Your mind becomes a circus, not because of the original worry, but because you went to war with it. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said it 2,000 years ago. It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things. The thought doesn't create the suffering. The fight with the thought does. Your brain is like that one friend who texts you at 3 a.m. with a random question like, hey, remember that embarrassing thing you said in 3rd grade? You can't stop the text from arriving, but you can choose whether or not to start a 3-hour conversation about it. Most of us are having long, exhausting conversations with our intrusive thoughts every single night. But here is the twist that most people miss. Every technique you've ever tried to quiet your mind has probably made it louder. Think about it. When you try to force yourself to relax, you just notice how tense you are. When you try to force yourself to sleep, you become hyper-aware of being awake. You cannot force the mind to be quiet for the same reason you cannot force yourself to fall asleep. Sleep happens when you stop trying to sleep. Quiet happens when you stop trying to be quiet. The trying is the actual disturbance. The French philosopher Blaise Pascal once said that all of humanity's problems stem from our inability to sit quietly in a room alone. But the reason we can't sit quietly is that we're trying to achieve a state of quiet. We've made silence into a chore. I'm not giving you a new technique today, because techniques are often just another way of trying. I'm giving you an understanding. You don't have to do anything with your thoughts. They don't require a response. They're like the traffic outside your window. You wouldn't sit there yelling at the cars to stop driving, would you? That would be insane. Yet, that's exactly what we do with our thoughts. If you're finding this valuable, hit subscribe. Most viewers aren't subscribed yet, and I'd love to have you in the academy. Now, let's talk about the biggest lie you've been told about your mind. The lie is that a quiet mind is the end goal. We have this image of a monk on a mountain floating in pure, thoughtless bliss. That's not the goal, and for 99% of us, it's not even possible. Chasing that image actually makes you more miserable because now, on top of your noisy mind, you feel like a failure for not being zen enough. You've turned natural brain activity into a personal defect. It's like judging the ocean for having waves. The ocean is supposed to have waves. Your mind is supposed to have thoughts. The goal isn't to have zero thoughts. The goal is to change your relationship with them. Let's get a little nerdy for a second. Your brain has something called the default mode network. This is the part of the brain that turns on when you aren't focused on a task. It's the me network. It's the part that daydreams about your past, worries about your future, and obsesses over your identity. Scientists have found that the more active this network is, the unhappier we tend to be. When you're lost in thoughts about yourself, you suffer. But when you're absorbed in a task like washing dishes or playing a sport, that network quiets down. You feel better, not because you achieved peace, but because you temporarily forgot yourself. The voice in your head that you think is you is actually just this network running on autopilot. It's a construction. And when you sit in silence and your mind goes crazy, it's just the self panicking because it has nothing to do. It generates problems just to stay relevant. Alan Watts used to say that trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. The you that is trying to quiet the mind is the same you that is making the noise. So, what do you actually do? You notice. That's it. You don't judge, you don't analyze, and you don't push away. You just label it. Oh, there's a thought about money. Oh, there's that 2 a.m. worry again. This creates distance. When you notice a thought, you are no longer inside the thought. You're the observer. It's the difference between being a character in a movie and being the person sitting in the theater eating popcorn. The movie is still playing, but it's not happening to you anymore. Neuroscientists call this metacognition. A study at UCLA showed that simply naming an emotion, saying, "I feel anxious" out loud, actually decreases the activity in your amygdala, the brain's fear center. Just by labeling the noise, you've engaged your prefrontal cortex, which naturally calms the emotional brain. You don't have to fight the toddler, you just have to be the calm adult who notices the toddler is having a tantrum. Imagine you're lying in bed at 2 a.m. Your brain starts its greatest hits of my worst mistakes playlist. Normally, you'd argue with it. I shouldn't have said that, I'm so stupid. But what if you just said, oh hey, it's the I'm stupid thought, I know this one. By not giving it the drama it wants, the thought loses its fuel. It won't disappear instantly, but it will stop driving the car. Here's the deepest part of this whole thing. If you are noticing the thought, who is the one doing the noticing? There's the thought, and then there's the awareness of the thought. Those are two different things. The thought is the weather. Sometimes it's a storm, sometimes it's sunny. But you are the sky. The sky doesn't become the storm. It just holds the storm. The awareness that is noticing your anxiety is not itself anxious. It's perfectly still. You don't have to create peace. You just have to realize that you are the space in which the noise is happening. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect. You'll get pulled back into the movie 1,000 times a day. That's fine. Each time you realize you're lost in thought and you come back to noticing, you're strengthening that muscle. The monks didn't start out with quiet minds. They just got really good at noticing when they were loud. When this understanding finally clicks, something remarkable happens. Time feels like it slows down. Colors look a little brighter. You realize that the reason you've been bored or seeking constant stimulation from your phone is that the mental noise was covering up the beauty of the present moment. It's like static on a radio covering up a beautiful song. The music was always there, you just couldn't hear it over the buzz. We spend so much money traveling to beautiful places or buying new things to find peace, but we're standing in front of the ocean asking where the water is. The peace is the awareness you already have. You've just been looking for your glasses while they were on your face the whole time. So, the next time your mind starts racing, don't try to fix it. Don't try to be zen. Just notice the noise. Give it a name. Recognize that you are the sky, not the weather. You've always been able to be at peace. You just forgot because no one reminded you. Consider this your reminder. The quiet was always here. You just had to stop being so loud about trying to find it. Drop a comment telling me what's the one thought your 2 a.m. brain loves to bring up the most, and subscribe if you haven't. I post new videos every week.